Oh, because she sent me a message that says I'm unable to join. I thought that meant she can't join, not like.
Oh, not that she technically can't join.
Hi, Facebook.
Hi, everyone. Rebecca should be here in a second, but we are going to discuss the recently announced reopening plan, not uh,
Guarantee.
guarantee for Walt Disney World. Let me just take care of some. Oh, there you go. So basically, I'll just go through the process. Basically, according to governor, you have to get, for theme parks to reopen, they have to get approval from their local mayor. So they will recently various theme parks, last week Universal, some smaller parks like Gatorland and everything, debuted their reopening plans to what's the Orange County Economic Recovery Task Force, which has a bunch of different working groups. That's not important. They will then take those presentations to the mayor of Orange County, Mayor Demings,
Sorry.
take it to Governor DeSantis, who will then approve it, and then they can reopen. A couple of things, they do get a site inspection from Orange County representatives and representative from Florida Public Health, and they have to have a specific reopening date. Now, that doesn't mean that has to be the reopening date, but they have to have a date in the plan, and they can't reopen before that. So you've seen a lot of smaller parks like announce a reopening date that they can't meet just from the process, but then they open up as soon as they get approval. So today, SeaWorld and Disney World presented. We're going to obviously focus on Walt Disney World. The presenter was Jim McPhee, who is Senior Vice President of Operations. Good guy, known him forever. But the headline is Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom will reopen July 11th. Disney's Hollywood Studios and Epcot will open July 15th. Now that's to the public. There will be soft opening periods, including cast previews and various affinity programs. So that's presumably like AP previews and Vacation Club previews that will start before then. But that is the day that, a guest could conceivably buy a ticket. Now, Disney, after the presentation, announced that they're suspending ticket sales and reservations so that they can accommodate the guests that already have reservations first, because presumably there'll be a phased capacity as well as phased theme park. So they want to make sure that they are able to get that in, get those folks in. So they put a pretty lengthy parks blog post in, but I think there's some things that we want that are important to say in their own words. I'm not going to read the whole thing because that's bad television, but a couple things to note is they're still waiting. They still are not technically approved by Orange County nor the state of Florida. I think that's sort of, everyone's been approved, so I don't foresee there be a roadblock, but technically they don't have final approval, and we probably won't get notified when they do. It'll probably just happen. The mayor will send a letter that will be part of public record, but there doesn't seem to be some sort of Governor DeSantis announcing reopening happening. They say this phased reopening will demonstrate a deliberate approach with limits on attendance and controlled guest density that aligns with guidance on physical distancing. That means certain experiences we know draw large group gatherings, such as parade and nighttime spectaculars, will return at a later date. In addition, high-touch experiences such as makeover opportunities, Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, playgrounds, and character meet and greets will remain temporarily unavailable, but characters will still be in our parks to entertain and delight our guests, which I think we've seen from like Shanghai, where they're off in the distance. There might be some sort of cavalcade. Luckily, Disney has the Shanghai experience to kind of build on. And this is where it gets into how they're going to sort of stagger it. Because theme park capacity will be significantly limited as we welcome guests back to the magic, we will manage attendance through a new theme park reservation system that will require all guests to obtain a reservation for park entry in advance. At this time, we are temporarily pausing new ticket sales and Disney Resort hotel reservations so we can focus on guests with existing tickets and reservations. Disney Vacation Club members can still make new reservations. Existing ticket holders and annual pass holders will be able to make reservation requests in phases before new tickets are sold. We'll be reaching out to these guests soon to provide additional details. We will resume new ticket sales and hotel reservations after that period of time. Theme park reservations will be limited due to attendance limitations and will be subject to availability. More details about this new reservation system will be available soon. So we got Doobie, Rebecca, and Kyle here. I just kind of go sort of point by point with this. And then we'll sort of do the big talk at the end. But to me, this sounds like annual pass holders are going to get first dibs after, probably a cast preview or something, right? Am I reading that
Yeah.
right? So what I find interesting about that is
in terms of a preview, not just first dibs in terms of reservation once they open on July 11th, but even in terms of previews before July 11th.
Previews, but also it seems like even after they open,
right? Both.
And what's interesting to me about that is in Shanghai, the annual pass holders still have to make reservations in their queue sort of for everybody else. But the APs are not, they don't consider that time to be valid part of the annual pass. So my question on this is, if APs are getting first dibs, when does the clock start ticking on annual passes again? And we don't have the answer, but
if
there's a different, so much of this is based off the Shanghai model, but this is specifically different.
Yeah, they could be mean and say, if you want to get a reservation, then we're going to start your clock that day.
Well, and it's one thing for a local resident who has an AP, maybe it's fair if they can get in, that's fine. But someone who's traveling, I'm sure there's APs all over the country.
Well, that would be one way to kind of limit what your annual pass holder pool is. If you kind of said you're in essence amending your agreement to where you're entering into this raffle, but that's going to count against your time paid. It could be one way to manage, because that's one of the things we've all been wondering is how do you limit your attendance at a park when you can see, when in the way it's designed, you already have this enormous number of people who have prepaid for access.
My guess would be, just based on simplicity of the system, that maybe they don't announce it right away, but at some point they just follow the lead of kind of how a lot of hotels and airlines are extending customer status. I think it just makes sense to just say everyone gets 6 extra months. Like, I think that just makes the most sense. And then, be like, hey, you can either take this extra 6 months extension that we're going to give you, or you can request a refund and then they'll prorate whatever you were up to before it closed. I just think that would make it the easiest, rather than worrying about all these different expiration dates across, hundreds of thousands of people.
One thing I want to mention is continuing, Vacation Club resorts will reopen to members and guests, and the Fort Wilderness Resort and Campground will reopen on June 22nd. I'm not quite sure how that applies to the Grand Floridian, but I wonder if that's sort of this indication as to when soft openings will start.
A good point.
Or at least,
Interesting.
there might be soft openings before that, but sort of a more wider scale soft openings. Not Disney World related, but just because it's here, Vero Beach and Hilton Head will open on June 15th, which actually Hilton Head was like the last Disney thing I did before this all went down. But nothing about Olani. Obviously, there's nothing about Disney Resort or anything like that at this point.
Or the cruise.
But
we did have one question. Someone was saying, why should APs get priority over guests with existing reservations who've paid a lot of money? And I think you may have noted it, but I think we should note that it seems priority is given both to annual pass holders and people who already have an existing reservation. If you have your tickets already, you have a priority as well. And while they haven't said anything, I got to believe if you have a hotel reservation and you're going with the hotel reservation, they're going to somehow make sure you're also going to have a priority.
Yeah, they talk about it as sort of being phased. I would imagine guests of staying on property in hotels will have the first phase, because you can really limit how many people that is.
But
and then probably roll down through various types of APs.
But considering all the questions that we're coming up with here, I think I better understand why the date is mid-July. Because first you have to get the approval process completed, and then you're going to have to sift through all these different, levels of access and whatnot for your clientele.
Well, and I think we saw some success with the way they did Galaxy's Edge, right? Where it wasn't so much about limiting it, but it was about getting, that was obviously part of it, but it got some of the demand out, right? Like APs are all going to want to be there on day one. So if you let them book it and then they might not feel the need to be there on July 5th or July 11th because they already got into their preview, and so it's not, it can focus on like quote day guests to focus on that. I also think you want to avoid the whole 4th of July issue anyway. I know Universal is opening a lot sooner, about 6 weeks earlier, but while they've evolved as time goes on, their local tourist space is still very different.
Well, I was going to
have 2 parks.
Well, and they're also the types of entertainment, just what their offerings are, I think are more conducive to the need for social distancing and those types of efforts than Disney is so much shows and parades and fireworks. And that's just not the same level of focus within, I'm not saying they don't have them. I'm just saying that I think there's a different kind of focus. It's more the thrill rides, which are naturally outdoors.
SeaWorld also presented today, and I think it's interesting that they are going to continue their parades.
Really?
It's hard to imagine how Disney could do a parade, just in terms of their density and the scope of their parades and the demands their parade do. I haven't seen a parade in SeaWorld, so
I saw their Sesame Street parade the last time we were there. It's dense too. That's an interesting decision.
Just continuing on, World of Disney is reopening. Disney stores also began their reopening communication today.
World of Disney reopened today. Can you talk a little bit about how that process works in terms of the reservations and such?
So they seems to be like they did Santa, where you would go up, check in with somebody, and they'll text you. Sort of like more of a restaurant. It's not through the app or anything like that. Maybe I'll get there, but sort of more simple, like you would have at Olive Garden. It's not a reservation. It's just a waiting room, virtual waiting room.
So they treat you like family there.
And to be clear, that's World of Disney at Walt Disney World, not at Disneyland.
Oh, very good.
Where it remains.
If the public comments are any indication, this is a bit of a hot button issue, but everyone over 3 and older will be required to wear a face covering in theme parks and common areas of resort hotels.
So is that uniform with what everyone else is doing? Because I feel like I'm seeing 2 and 3, but I don't know if it's over 2 or 2 and under and 3 or 3.
I think amongst the major theme parks, it's consistent. Some of the smaller parks have different rules. And like if you look at Fun Spot, their Kissimmee rules and their Orlando rules are different because they're in 2 different counties. And Osceola County, where part of Animal Kingdom is, requires face coverings for anybody, basically everybody. So
well, I just meant like that specific age, like 2 or 3. I'm unclear.
I noticed in some of the reports that I saw the age of 2 and under mentioned regarding SeaWorld, and then I saw 3 and under mentioned everywhere else. And like you, Kyle, I haven't been able to dig through to see exactly what because my understanding is like pediatric wise, it's 2 and older is what they, I'm sorry, I said under, I mean over, but most pediatricians, from what I believe I've read, it's no one under 2 should be wearing a face covering because of the concerns with that age group. So, but like I say, I saw reports as well, Kyle, that mentioned the age of 2 being part of SeaWorld, whereas all the other theme parks I've seen, it's been 3 has been the age, but I haven't dug into that yet.
I have 2 questions, one from me and one from the chat. For me, do the rules apply when you go to other planets like Pandora and Star Wars Galaxy, that too as well?
Very important. Yeah, very.
And
thank you.
More importantly, someone's asking if they mentioned anything about the water parks.
They did not. They specifically did not mention anything about the water parks in their presentation or in their communication yet. SeaWorld did. SeaWorld talked about their plans for Aquatica and Discovery Cove, but Disney has not commented at all.
And Universal is planning to open their 3rd gate, right?
Volcano Bay. Yep.
Yeah.
Someone else is asking about Epcot and the cast members at the pavilions. Any word or thoughts on that with all the internationals that are typically there?
Well, I think this is the first step will get approval, and then the second step will be getting cast members. I think if they're unable to come into the country, I would not think it's inconceivable that those pavilions will be staffed by non-international representatives.
That would be so bizarre.
Now, you don't have to be from, you have to have the culture of that country, but you can still be an American citizen and work there. So, there's plenty of people that immigrate and then get a job at Epcot.
I didn't see the presentation live. I saw a portion of it before joining. Well, no, I saw the presentation before joining, but I didn't get to see any Q&A. I saw a tweet that talked about, well, let me just cite it. It was Blog Mickey, and I saw them tweet that something about relaxation zones. Did either of you guys? Oh, Kyle, you're nodding.
He mentioned it briefly. It wasn't really clear because he kind of said zones on property or off property where you could take off your mask, but he didn't elaborate at all. So we didn't report anything on it because I didn't have enough information to.
No, that makes sense.
that.
But the tweet just caught my eye because I thought it was kind of a fascinating notion that now instead of smoking areas, well,
and typically I've seen that referenced with more of a employee side, with like
okay,
a area that the cast member or employee can go and take off there.
I'm laughing at you, Daniel. Sorry.
Daniel.
He just said he can't wait to be a server at Akershus.
A place where you can take off your mask, because break rooms are a problem because they're all together, so you still have to wear your mask in a break room.
That makes sense. So you're thinking it was more of a reference to the employee side rather than the guest side.
I'm not saying that they won't create places for that. I just don't see how you do it from a place where you are by yourself.
Right.
You take off your mask, but I don't.
It's called a restroom stall.
Yeah, I feel like it's basically like a restroom stop.
Bring him back Tomorrowland Cabanas.
Otherwise.
Oh, there you go. There you go, Kyle. A reason for the cabanas in Tomorrowland. Very nice.
It was an upsell the whole time. We didn't see it coming.
Another question someone asked about the mask and policing it and guests. What's it been like at Disney Springs? Do we have any sense of what it's been like in terms of compliance, in terms of cast having to get involved, guests?
So that's a good point. I mean, according to Jim McPhee, it's been fairly good. I mean, obviously, anytime you have a rule, certain guests don't follow it, but they have this sort of social distancing squad, which are
dressed as an ape, right?
What's that?
Dressed as an ape?
No, that's Gatorland social distancing skunk ape, right?
So
skunk ape?
Currently, it's children's programs cast members, but they'll expand that out to be more, and I think there'll be guests focused on one-on-one interaction, kind of like a guest relations type, who will be trained specifically on how to deal with guests that don't comply. But according to Disney, compliance has been fairly consistent and not been a problem. But there will be cops out. I mean, Disney cops, right? Who will make sure you're doing your thing.
I'd say as a parent, the notion of the social distance squad is appealing because sometimes it's helpful to have kind of a intermediary help with the keeping the mask on. That way it isn't only mom and dad constantly saying, put on your mask. If you have kind of that social pressure in a fun way from a Disney person, I can see how that could also be of value.
Yeah, when I was a cast member, parents would do that. Like, they'd see me and wearing a tie, and they'd be like, "Oh, you can ask this guy. The park is closing in 20 minutes." And I was like, "What?" And then they give you the look, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, the park is. Thank you for making it."
Really? You wouldn't just no. We got 3 hours to go. What are you doing?
I did that once that's when I learned what they were trying to do, because I was like, "No, we're up until midnight. We got like 6 more hours." I do want to I think they're coming in their voice. It's important because 1,800 people viewed this and signed off on it. Additional information on enhanced health and safety measures and operational changes for reopening locations will be shared soon. These policies are under continuous review and are subject to change as we monitor conditions and receive guidance from health and government authorities. We're being deliberate during these phased reopenings, and we're encouraged by how our guests are responding at Shanghai Disney Resort and Disney Springs. We're doing our part, and we need our guests to do their part too, as we work together to focus on safety. That last sentence struck out at me because first time I can recall that Disney said, you got to do your part too. Like, even when guest behavior has been atrocious, they've been not really wanting to be like, come on, do your thing, right? Behave. Like, it's the tone of guest responsibility has really changed because of this. Like, they are making guests do things, and Disney never had a guest is always right philosophy, but this is definitely a move towards, if you don't like the rules, don't come.
Because in addition to the mask, there's also a temperature check for guests too, right?
Right.
Presumably even for staying at the resort.
Yeah.
I do think a few months after Shanghai Disneyland opened, they did do that one campaign with Zootopia characters, like teaching you different rules of the park and asking you to be a good guest. But other than that, yeah, you're right. I haven't really seen that sort of language before.
They have the Timon and Pumbaa little safety.
That's true. Yeah, follow the rules. Don't swing on the chains.
Wild about safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that always felt like it was more of a, hey, kids,
the
behave.
first key.
It didn't seem like it was directed to the, that was more of a PSA kind of thing than we're gonna hold
Don't
you.
they have an
accountable.
entire Disney World channel dedicated to it though?
Yeah, they do. Wild about safety. Greg Hale. Is Greg Hale still around?
I don't know. Hey, and looking at the signs that that were shared in the announcement, these feel like Main Street area signs, but are these going to be, do you think that because of the safety element of this, that these will stay standardized? Or do you
No.
think that we'll see font changes depending on
I think
the
you'll see
area?
changes. Those
Okay.
are definitely Main Street signs.
Right?
Some of
Yeah.
them look like Animal Kingdom to me. The
Okay.
first page of them.
Yeah, some of them are different. Like there's one that has a Hollywood Studios vibe. I don't know where the link went, but
This would be a good LP quiz.
That'd be fun.
Guess which
guess where,
safety sign.
where will you find this sign? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm seeing the variety you guys are mentioning. Okay, cool.
I'm going to attempt to do something and we'll see how it goes.
I was going to suggest this, but I don't know how this works either. Are you going to share your screen to try to show these photos?
Yes, I am.
If we miss
you
you,
have
This
the
is
ones
scary.
that are correctly oriented?
I don't. I have the ones that are.
I
not.
tweeted the proper orientation if you want to use that.
Oh, and then breaking news. The Dole Whip nachos are available
whoa,
at
that is
Disney
huge.
Springs. Yeah.
That is
Woohoo!
huge.
Oh, wow. The sky really cleared up.
Yeah, it looks well, I think
It's
that's
like
actually
Florida or something.
that's the publicity photo from when those happened a long time ago, but the tweet is real. The picture is dated.
Okay, let's see here.
So watch me be wrong. Watch me be. This is Jeremiah's beautiful work, and I'm
I
attributing.
think that is his photo because when they originally had them, they had the little thing on there that said 1 million. It takes over
Okay.
my whole screen too.
Yeah, that looks Hollywood Studios-ish.
Yeah, this looks like Main Street or main entrance over here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but
Yeah, we can.
I see the clicker thing now. I was actually thinking Animal Kingdom because of the color scheme. The dark greens reminded me of Animal, but who knows?
and then yeah, I think this is. I mean, there's always discussion about whether these it's one thing for a mobile order sign, but an important notice. How much should that blend in?
Right.
You're gonna get a different answer from the safety team than you're gonna get from the Imagineering team.
Really?
But I think these kinds of signage will probably be themed to a degree.
Probably, yeah. I don't know. Those do look pretty.
So
generic.
Disney's earnings are going to be dramatically impacted by the amount of money that went to the sign shop for this project.
No, I want to invest in colored tape because that's what every grocery store and theme park is using a lot of these days.
So are we.
Yeah, really.
So now to kind of go back to the big picture, what do we think about the date?
I think it makes sense. As you kind of talked about at the beginning, some of these parks might just be like, hey, we're planning to open, and then throw out a date, and then if it has to push back, that's fine. They just want to open ASAP. Whereas Disney, when they make an announcement, it has big ramifications in the media and for people that are wanting to book vacations. So I think they kind of have to stick to it as much as they're able to under government regulations.
Can you stop the
Yeah,
screen share?
I feel like Disney if Disney opens, it kind of says it's okay to travel, which may not be the right solution, but whereas opposed to like the fun spot, I feel like that sends that means I can go to my local theme park, or calling that the theme park's a joke, but local Death Trap. And I think it makes sense for them to be one of the last to open. Especially considering the additional complexities that come from having 4 parks and 25 resorts and such. Doobie, you seem to be kind of doing the guessing game for reopening dates. What do you think?
I would like you to stop the screen share one.
Oh,
So that the people at home can see all 4 of us. I know you can't tell here, but on the broadcast, it only shows the person speaking. Someone's asking, what do you think the odds are that since this is months out, the culture may shift in terms of safety in this time frame? I think in terms of Disney shifting, very little.
I think it's going to, in terms of what, like becoming more restrictive or less restrictive?
Yes, less.
I think the chances are 0.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, it's, this isn't going to be a forever thing, but they're not going to open. They are going to follow their guidelines. They might delay it. That could happen. The culture could say, hey, we went a step too far, hold up. But I don't see them not opening with mask requirements, temperature screening.
Someone else asked, how soon will we go? Are we all willing to be there pretty early in this process, given the opportunity?
I am.
You want to answer? You don't have to answer.
Yeah, no, I am. I would not be uncomfortable visiting a Disney park based upon what I'm reading. Now, I haven't seen, I don't know how I will feel once I get there. I know what my perception is. I know what my boundaries are. I know what my expectations are. So, based upon what I'm reading, based upon the presentation, I would not feel uncomfortable. There are certain elements of it I'll be more comfortable with than others. For example, I don't know that I would be as comfortable jumping right into a dinner reservation, maybe like in a restaurant environment, but other elements of a Disney trip, I wouldn't be hesitant about. Now, like I say, once I get there, if I don't know, I've gone to the grocery store a few times since this is.
I have no problem going to the park, but I'm not super comfortable traveling to get there.
Yeah, I could see that.
That is the scariest part of it, for sure.
Well, also, are you guys annual pass holders at Disney World?
Sort of.
Because that's actually that would be a factor for me, because I'm not. If I was an annual pass holder and I lived there, it'd be one thing. But thinking of investing all that money and buying stuff and then getting there and then realizing that you're uncomfortable or there are more people than you're saying, Rebecca, I think that would be the harder part for me. Not that,
No, you're right. No, you're right. Because for me, it's a family vacation. All of my family lives in Orlando. So for me, it's a family vacation, whether or not I end up at Disney World. So yes, you're totally right that would shape it differently if I had a different dynamic going into it. Because for me, it's family, seeing my family, and then Disney World is also there. So yeah, very, very, very different focus.
And I mean, speaking from Laughing Place, we're allowing our team to go into the parks, but we're not allowing travel. So, because that's the guidance right now.
Right.
So, I don't know when it will be acceptable for Laughing Place to send none of us live near a park, send any of us to a Disney theme park.
Right.
Mike will go to Disneyland, Jeremiah will go to Disney World, and various other people that are local, but it's not on the cards for us. And, it's less impactful to Disneyland, but it's a fairly big chunk of Disney World. And I think that's where, you're going to see Disney is going to be spending a lot of time evaluating their resort availability. I don't just mean like it's booked up. I mean, like, how many do they let in? How many reservations? Because, you don't want to fill up your resorts, but not have the theme park capacity, but you also don't want to open up resorts that won't get guests because they don't know what kind of demand they're going to get for that. It's one thing, we've seen local attractions do well, some of them not so well, but that's completely different. We don't know what the guests are going to do here.
So given that, and given that Disney has 4 theme parks, are you surprised they basically, I mean, I know they can always change, but they essentially committed to opening all 4 of them, within a few days of each other.
Yes, I was surprised Epcot was as soon as it was, just because the size of it, in terms of cast support that's needed for that park, the international component, the construction issues. Yes, I was surprised by that. I wasn't surprised to start with Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom, but I was surprised that they moved as quickly as they did. But I think part of it is I wonder what I wonder how and I'll never know how Universal's plan impacted Disney's plan, where Disney is opening their 2 parks kind of simultaneously. Now they're not doing any sort of like reservation system, which we'll be curious to see how it plays out. But I also think Disney, once Universal opens, they're going to see how they go and what they can learn from that, as they have with Shanghai. This has obviously been impacted by what's happened in Shanghai.
We also don't know what their bookings look like, because I'm sure that will play into it to an effect. If you're trying to social distance people and you're limiting capacity, you want to make sure that you have somewhere for them to go. So am I making sense? You guys understanding what I'm saying? If you,
a lot of people.
Yeah,
it's also harder to get there too, right? Like there's less flights.
And I was thinking like just your travel system, just all of it. If I wonder to some extent if maybe the opening is more about kind of spreading the people rather than, if everybody, it's much harder to social distance a bunch of people in a single location than it is to social distance people spread out over several locations, was my thought when I saw that. But
about the logistics of this, because I mean, in Disney World, people stay on property and then they have to get around. They've got buses to deal with, the monorail, the
Skyliner,
attraction and history. There's just much more to deal with than all the other theme parks have to deal with.
Yeah, and they also have a bigger PR stake in the game. They screw it up, it's going to matter much more to the Disney organization than if Universal screws up, how that impacts Comcast.
what do you think they're going to do regarding transportation? Because that was actually what was on my mind before you mentioned it, especially like the Skyliner and stuff. I guess that one might be the easiest because you just maybe let a group of guests, just a single group, go and then mark it and then clean it and then
I would buy stock in the minivan if I were you.
Yeah, it's an excellent question because, how do you sanitize the sky? But because you can't just stop them.
But I mean, most people get around by bus, and if you're going to social distance on that bus, you're putting like 3 parties on that bus as opposed to packing it like sardines. Like now, I realize there won't be nearly as many people at the resort as a whole, but that's got to be. I mean, buses are going to be running constantly.
Yeah, when you sanitize the bus after every group. I mean, who knows? And I think Disney that's why Disney's going to take some more time. There's a lot more to think about than, essentially, a regular theme park, you can operate like a store for the most part if you eliminate playgrounds and things. Yes. Whereas Disney World is a city. And it's a much more complicated.
It's an experimental prototype community of tomorrow.
Someone's asking,
especially if all the NBA players are going to take all the rooms.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about that aspect of it.
Someone asked about park hopping. Since there's reservations for a park, we don't know, but there's probably a good chance there won't be park hopping.
Yeah, I don't think there's any incentive to allow park hopping just because that goes back to the transportation issue.
It's going to be interesting. I saw that former Imagineer Eddie Sato was on Fox Business just before we did this, and I didn't get to see it yet. I was going to try and find it later, but he's been doing a lot of talking about kind of where theme parks can go in this era of social distancing. And I haven't had a chance yet to hear it, but in talking about the realities of it, because I'm currently in Northern California, we're still very sheltered in place. And so just so when in thinking about your question, Kyle, I realized like the realities of it aren't even really on my radar truly, because I think I've left my house twice since March 18th or so. So, you know, it's like one of those things where ideally I think about what it is to get out, but then the realities of it, maybe I'm not processing it quite correctly because of the bubble I'm in.
Well, you know, for me, it's kind of stressful to go out just because, like, you don't want to not follow the rules. And so, you know, you go to the Safeway, like in the supermarket, I went down the wrong way. Like I just didn't see the arrow. I mean, and no one noticed. Right?
You're one of those people.
What's that?
You're
No,
one of
like,
those people.
I was like, oh, dag nabbit. Luckily, no one noticed. And it's not that I care because people, you know, but I like following the rules.
Right,
So,
right, yeah.
rules, and you know, you got to make sure. I mean, as a parent, I mean, I'm not, you know, I can imagine it's hard to say, no, sweetheart, stop here. I mean, considering how poorly many kids behave in queues anyway. How's that?
We haven't had to navigate that on any level yet, because they suggest that you don't take, you know, kids with you. So
Right.
our son really hasn't been out in the new normal, as it were.
And your son too is relatively, I mean, I was.
Oh no,
he's not 6.
No,
you know,
right, but it's just one of those things. When I start to think about what it is to go to a theme park now, it's going to be a very different environment, and it would be quite the shock to the system to go from what we are right now to that. As you point out, you know, we don't do non-essential travel. That's the guideline. But if, let's say for some reason we could, just for him to go from what our life is right now to theme park would be quite a shock to the system, especially because theme parks had been second nature to him, and they're going to be totally different than they were. So not only, you know, so it would be quite the drastic transition.
Just wait till you see all the childless millennials in Walt Disney World in the next few months. Just them and the NBA.
Daniel says he's surprised they opened Magic Kingdom given the transportation issues. They have not finished that walkway, have they? They're making one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this would have been a good time to do that. I know construction's a lot.
Yeah, but I that's not a realistic way to do it. But yeah, I agree, Daniel, that I would expected it to be Animal Kingdom, Magic Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, Epcot. I
think you have to open the headline.
But there's a lot of politics here too, and I don't mean like Disney internal politics, but when Orange County, Florida is based on Disney World, you know, you either work there, you make your living from the people that work there, you make your living from the people that visit there. I mean, it's all connected. So unlike LA, where, you know, Disneyland, there's this pressure from every other business and all their you know, or a substantial chunk of their employees to get Disney World reopened, because all the other parks can open, but until Disney World opens, it's not going to be the same. Sure, there may be some people that want to go to Universal and will take the opportunity to do that, but it's hard to imagine people are going to go visit Central Florida just to go to Gaylord, you know, resort.
Have you seen ice?
They're gonna
all around
Central Florida attractions. They're going to Disney World. So if Disney World's not open, there's a lot of pressure for Disney World to open. And seeing that the other parks were opening in early June, I think this is about as late as they could push to stay in the political good graces, while still buying them some time that if they feel they need to delay further, they will.
Okay, and now for some totally reckless speculation. Does this give you any insight into what you perceive the future for the West Coast, for the Disneyland Resort?
If I'm guessing, I would say you're probably talking August, September.
3 months of AP previews.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's not a bad idea, right? Like, you know, but yeah, I don't, and there's a lot of reckless reporting out there about, and part of it's, you know, California's fault with their phases are sort of all mushied up together. But, you know, there's been no clear direction from the governor's office about when theme parks will reopen. They still don't have movie theaters open, you know, so.
Orlando?
What's that?
Orlando?
No, we're talking California now.
No, I'm just, does Orlando have movie theaters?
Oh, okay.
No, but Orlando, they're getting into they're close to that. You know, there's been indication that they're very close to that, and they, you know, they have hair salons and nail salons are all open, have been open for a lot longer than California, which is, I mean, if you look in the Bay Area, it still isn't open. So I don't know. I mean, Orange County is obviously moving faster than LA, but I don't think Disney's in a rush to reopen Disneyland.
I know I'm becoming Rapunzel. Check it. It gets
Yeah.
longer and longer.
We had two quick questions from the chat I wanted to see. One is, they haven't said anything about Magical Express, I'm guessing, correct?
They have not.
And two, someone says, do you think it's worth bothering to make fast pass reservations?
Sure. I mean,
Why not?
I mean, I don't. It's not
they're
that
offered.
time consuming. It can only help you. You know, even if it doesn't work out, you know, there might be some recovery for
You
it.
show up at the gate and say, but I have a fast pass on my list.
That is interesting. I'm wondering if the tech will be able to make alterations for that.
I mean, it might
reality.
be fast pass only. Like if they're talking about doing virtual queues and stuff, if you just do fast pass.
Yeah, I mean, it would probably get you. You know, I don't know what's going to have a virtual queue at this point. So having a fast pass might get you, at least priority. I mean,
Well, yeah, but why even bother with a standby? If if you can just continually keep making reservations. Like instead if they take off that cap, like if you can start off with a few and I don't know.
well, there's some.
That's basically what a virtual queue is anyway.
Matter because the capacity, right? Like you don't want to have, everyone have a gap where they have no guests. But at this point, that's probably not an issue. Yeah,
I'm just saying they
I
could
would make
leverage
it
that
work.
system and like adjust it to, shorten the windows and
Yeah,
I understand rather than it being fast pass in the traditional sense, be fast pass in that it reflects the reality of a social distance queue.
And let's be clear here.
Yeah,
Disney had to present today. Disney had to have a plan today. Disney did not have to communicate to all their guests today. They only communicated what they felt they needed to because they made their presentation today. Disney will have a complete rollout of communications as we get closer. But this was not a presentation to guests of how you're going to visit Walt Disney World. This is a presentation to a governmental body due to sunshine laws was public.
So if people want to know about Disney's further presentations to guests, how would they stay abreast of that?
Visit laughingplace.com.
Okay.
The other thing I would say, and a shameless plug for Becky, but our travel partner, Mouse Fan Travel, there's just a lot of moving parts here. And so if you're looking to make a reservation, whether it's in the short term or even longer term, now might be a good time, even if you move it, because they've increased their flexibility procedures. So, you might be able to get a good deal, but also without any sort of major commitment. So I would check in with Becky and her team at Mouse Fan Travel because, that way you don't have to pay attention to every day. Like, is this trip canceled? What are my options? You just go, hey, what's the situation? And they go, okay. I had that because I have a trip to Paris and Adventures by Disney that's booked. I'm not going to go, but they're helping me navigate the best way to get the best value out of it moving forward. So I would definitely, and I don't have to pay attention to every, time they change a policy or cancel a trip, they just sort of communicate. So
they were very helpful to us, keeping us informed as things were developing within Disney, kind of, oh, we hope, but we're not sure. I just felt like they did a really good job of kind of maintaining our expectations, but yet not putting a total damn. Go ahead, Phoebe.
We had one booked for July in Adventures by Disney. That wasn't officially canceled until about a week ago, but they did a good job of letting us keep our hopes somewhat up while
being realistic. Yeah, exactly. And the communications were very effective and much appreciated. And we didn't have to keep our own finger on the pulse of what was happening, which was very, very nice. So I was going to ask a question, but it popped out of my head. Oh, bummer. Oh, I will say that for me, as a Disney dweeb, I'm finding, following all the tweets from Jeremiah and the LP crew on what's happening at Disney Springs, very enlightening, just regarding kind of, I find it like a little sample, a little taste, because I feel like certain things are going to be tested and tried there, and then what is more efficient, I anticipate seeing moved into the theme park realm, whereas things that maybe weren't as efficient fading off. So one of the examples being today, the queuing that they were doing for World of Disney. As we've seen so many times, Disney tweaks things. They throw something out there, and then over time it evolves, and it changes as they see how, because there's always the reality of guest behavior versus the anticipation of guest behavior when you're trying a new system. And sometimes you can retrain the guest to fit your system, and sometimes you have to fix your system to fit the guest.
The one thing I do want to say, and this is, obviously a biased thought, but when they do reopen and you go, please be considerate to the cast members. One, they're dealing with a lot of new rules. You're dealing with a lot of new rules. The cast member came up with none of these rules and guidelines. They're just trying to do their job. They have a lot that they're thinking about, and they probably have some concerns, just knowing that guests from around the world visit Central Florida. And Disney gets a lot of credit in Florida for closing down when they did to prevent it getting out of control in Orange County, where I thought it would be rampant, right? Like, there's no reason to think that would not have been a hotspot initially. So, they don't come up with CDC guidelines. They don't come up with Florida guidelines. They do not come up with Disney World guidelines, but they are held accountable to enforcing them. And, it's not, they're not there. No cast member wants to cause trouble with a guest just because that's going to make their day better. So, even if you don't like the mask thing, don't, if you're not really ready to do it, don't go. If someone approaches you or, you forget, that's totally fine. I'm sure they're going to be considerate when they do it. Just, follow their guidance, because, there's reasons these things happen. And, just understand that they're under a lot of stress. You're under a lot of stress, and just take an extra minute to take a deep breath, and you're there to have fun.
Are you going to do, we're all in this together now?
I'll see what you started.
Christina in the chat thanks you as a CM for making that speech, by the way, and I fully agree with that.
Well, I can't do that kind of speech because I have family members, so it feels very self-serving to treat my family nice.
But it's pretty basic. You are making a choice to go to Disney World. You don't have to go, and you're there for a few days.
Yeah.
They do this for a living, and whatever fear you have in the back of your mind, they're enduring every single day. So have some consideration.
Yep.
Yeah,
It does remind me, like when I worked at the movie theater, if people had issues with anything, like why we didn't accept passes for certain movies or why we couldn't give them a poster, I would just blame the studio, because they weren't going to call the studio.
Good move. That's a good one, Kyle.
That was a cast member. People would always be like, "It's a free country," and I'm like, "Yeah, but it's private property. Like, there's a difference. It's not a public park." But
it's challenging, and there are times where frustrations rise I've seen it on the guest side. Hey, I'll admit it. I remember a time a cast member came over and told me I was doing something that I shouldn't do, that I've done a gazillion times previously, and I kind of snapped back. And then after the cast member walked away, I realized, you know what? They're just doing their job, and I could have just chilled. It wasn't that big of a deal. So I went over and said, "Hey, sorry, it's been a rough day. You were just doing your job. I should have just taken it. No biggie." And then she just looked at me. She was like, "Wow." And I'm like, "No, sorry, I didn't need to take out my frustration on you. You're just doing your job." So
that's called recovery.
It was a moment. And it was like it was one of those not big things, like, could you move over to the left a little bit more or something, it was, and I was just like, what? But and then, like I say, mom mode stepped in, and I was like, oh, sorry about that. Sorry, you're doing your job, and I apologize for, I did what she said. I just did it with attitude, and I said, sorry, I should have done it without attitude.
So there's a lot going on, and we're gonna wrap up here, but I just want to share some of the things happening. Marvel Comics are coming back today. So Mac and I will be going through the new issues later on this afternoon, early evening. Jeremiah's at Disney Springs will have full coverage of now that Disney retail is open. Disney store locations are now starting to reopen throughout the country. So check shopdisney.com store locator to find what's going on with your locality. But that's happening. And then on Sunday this week at 7:30, Doobie and Gideon will be hosting Disney Trivia Live on YouTube.
Yes.
Very cool.
Topics
Fun
to
stuff.
be determined.
And this isn't Disney related, but don't forget space launch coming
Yay!
in about
3 hours, right?
what 4 hours or so.
1:30 or 1:30 California time, 4:30ish Florida time. If the weather permits, hopefully. Yay!
Yeah, and ABC News Live and National Geographic are doing a whole sort of wall-to-wall thing with it. So it's been interesting to see Nat Geo getting integrated with the Walt Disney Company, and it's been kind of fun because gives you a little, it's nice to focus on science and exploration at this time when we're all stuck inside and can't explore nothing. So thanks, guys. Bye, Dibby. Bye, Kyle.
Bye, you
Bye,
guys.
Everyone in the chat, really appreciate your participation. It's been fun.
Take care, everyone.